Hello everyone, and welcome to this first little YouTube video of mine. Thank you so much for being here and joining me for this. Today I'm really excited to be showing you the process of the making of my newest painting, which is a little mermaid scene. And for that I am securing my sheet of paper here. Usually I secure it on all sides, but since I initially had planned to leave it at just a spot illustration, I didn't think I had to. I went in for the sketch very spontaneously for this one, and I had no reference or clear idea of what I was gonna do and just started sketching the shapes out. I rarely use references, though I'd like to start doing that more often, as one obviously learns much more that way and it's good practice. I also like the idea of sketching from life and then adding your own little details to it. With my sketches, I let myself get as sloppy as I want and carefully erase any too thick lines after. I always used to do my line art with fine liners, until I saw other artists do it with dip pens and ink instead and got curious. And you guys, the difference that it makes is incredible. First of all, the black of the ink is way darker and fuller and deeper than that of liners, which already elevates the looks of the drawing in my opinion, but the best part is that, magically, I have never not liked a drawing I did with ink. I have no idea what it is, but for some reason they all turn out beautifully. I feel like the lines come out way more naturally using dip pens, and maybe it's also that I have way more fun doing it this way. Really, I don't know, but to anyone working with a lot of line art, I definitely suggest trying it out. I love the line art part of any painting process. It almost feels like a meditation to me. I especially enjoy adding all the dainty little details, like the single strands of hair, the scales on the tail, shells on the rocks, or the slight lines that illustrate the movement of the water. A small inking tip from me would be to every now and then interrupt your lines and leave spaces free, as I feel like it makes the whole piece look less rigid and more natural. Just thought to drop this in for your information. I'm using Canson cold pressed 300 GSM watercolor paper here, and the inking is done with a Hiro Leonardt nib of the size 40 as well as waterproof drawing ink from the German brand Rohrer Klinger. For the coloring, I'll be using my set of Windsor Newton dry pigments, but I'll leave all of that in the description down below if you wish to come back to this later. Now let's get painting. I'm erasing any lines that bother me and then go in with the first layer. As you will see in the process, I work with a lot of layers, and I usually start off by just adding the base colors everywhere. For this scene I had a gloomy, rainy sort of day in mind, so I'm mostly going in with bluish shades of green. To keep a certain color palette or vibe for a painting, I always mix in a little bit of the same color or tone into every color I'm using. So for example, if I want to do a sunny afternoon kind of vibe, I'll add warm tones like yellows and oranges to all the colors I'm using. And if I'm going for a rather cloudy situation like I'm doing here, I'll add blues. Just a little reminder though to not overdo this and still keep your contrast strong, otherwise it might start looking a little plain or monotonous. Another cool thing I learned is to use lots of different colors in a seemingly monochromatic area. I sort of did this with these rocks, but you could go even stronger. The rocks are supposed to be a dark, slightly bluish gray, but throughout the process I layered with greens, browns, and sandy tones as well. This looks especially cool if you're doing it in the initial wash and creates a different kind of depth that I love. I feel like it comes closer to capture the so versatile beauty of nature, where if you look closely and pay attention, nothing is ever just unicolored, not even a single pebble, stone, or twig. To create the strand of shimmer where the light reflects on my mermaid's slippery tail, I'm just layering around it without being too exact about it, creating more depth with each layer. Then the rosy cheeks and details that I love to add to all my characters. I'm adding more gray tones down here to have the rocks still be a little bit visible just below the water surface, as it would be in real life. The mermaid's fin as well, I'm continuing with paler greens underwater. I dearly love how with every new layer so much depth is added to the painting. It's really a trust the process kind of situation, because I feel like no matter how uninteresting the painting looks just in the beginning, the longer you work on it and the more often you go over it and its details, the more alive it becomes. I feel like no well-detailed and well-layered artwork could ever look uninteresting or unalive, no matter how shitty or boring it started. Of course, committing to a piece in that way is going to take a lot longer and can feel very tedious at times, especially if it's a bigger one and not just tiny like the one I'm doing here. Right in the beginning, when it's just a little more than the base colors and looks a little plain, maybe on the third layer, I honestly not seldom lose interest in continuing a piece, and sometimes I don't. But what I know is that whenever I do stick to it and work it through all until the end, it always turns out great and I end up loving it. I think this is such a beautiful and fitting metaphor also for life. Just how sometimes we have to stick through the harder or more tedious times, or the times when we feel unsatisfied and still give it our all and love on the details until the very end. And maybe it won't be perfect, but it will have depth and be alive. And that's what art and life are all about, right? I genuinely love how you can find metaphors for life everywhere. That's honestly one of my favorite things in the world. One day I would love to truly commit to like a large piece and give it the same amount of detail as I give my small ones. As I said before, I had initially planned for this to be a spot illustration, just the mermaid and her rock, but now that the mermaid was close to done, the paper still seemed a little empty, so I decided to give her a background. I decided on a small, rocky bay as a little bit of shelter for the mermaid, and this piece of shore in the background to indicate that she is not too far from the land. I kept the line art rather simple as I still wanted my mermaid as the focal point. Then we're back with doing layer after layer of coloring again. I usually do the first layers a lot wetter than the ones after to create more of a wash, so they naturally take longer to dry, and sometimes I'll just do other things while waiting, but here I took my teeny tiniest brush and decided to go even deeper with the details of my mermaid, really creating a contrast and darkening the shading where I thought appropriate. Then when the background was close to dry, I went back to layering. As I said, it's always a lot of layering, especially with these rocks. Adding some greens to them because of course there's things like sea moss and algae on them, and also to create that natural versatility of color. and going over the sky again to make it a little gloomier. These are really the finishing touches where I go over everything again and see where I can add more depth, create a stronger contrast in the shady areas, and make sure everything looks good in connection to each other as a whole. And it is finished. This painting came really easily to me, even though it took a lot longer than my usual small paintings, because I really went into depth with this one and made tons of layers, as you could see throughout the process. And yeah, but I'm really satisfied with how it turned out. I think it's really cool, and I love the sensual, peaceful expression that the mermaid has. Here are some close-ups so you can really see the details and all of the teeny tiny lines and such. And I especially love how you can really see the fin and tail and rocks continue underwater. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time.